I genuinely think that Emerald Amethyst is the best aggro deck that you can choose. Yes, it's not going to be the fastest, but it also doesn't get completely blown out either. It is probably the most resilient aggro deck that you can play in the set 4 set championships or in the Ursula's Return metagame. In this particular matchup, we are going up against a Ruby Sapphire deck, which is one of the reasons why you might want to play Emerald Amethyst, is because it should have a decent matchup into these control heavy decks, these Sapphire decks. So if your meta is Sapphire heavy, this is a decent option to consider. However, that being said, if the opponent does end up getting up to that 8 ink, the new Sisu empowered or emboldened sibling or empowered sibling. It's empowered sibling because emboldened warrior is the 3-drop. But the new 8-drop Sisu that wipes 2 or less strength characters can be absolutely devastating for your board here, especially if the opponent sees multiple. Be prepared and stuff like that is also, still pretty devastating, but less so because it doesn't put a 3-questing body on board. But regardless, your goal is to quest aggressively so that even if your board does get wiped, you can close the game out with something like castles or goats. Now, castle will be kind of a dead card once the opponent establishes a wide strength heavy board because they'll just run everything into the castle. So at a certain point it does just become ink, but early on in the matchup it is a great thing just to throw down and force your opponent to have the Maui. Basically that's the only thing that they can really use early on to take it out. Otherwise they're going to need to invest a lot in the late game in order to throw multiple bodies into it. So here you can see we are very aggressive, and we were on the draw in this first matchup here, and then in the second matchup for this best of 2 we'll be on the play. I think my hand here wasn't the greatest, so normally you wouldn't want to banish the Chernobog followers, but another reason why I did do it is because the opponent is on 4 ink, which means if they go to 5 ink, they could drop the Maui and just instantly out my Chernobog follower. So if I was going to quest with it, I might as well banish it, otherwise I just leave it readied up. If I leave it readied up, I lose, the potential lore gain, so it does slow me down. The opponent here is on, I think, 3 cards in hand or 4. But they did end up outing my Diablo here, which doesn't feel great. So the Brawl coming in clutch there, but the Flynn Rider continues to quest, and then we opt to drop a Rabbit here in order to continue that card draw and keep our hand healthy. If you have aggro threats, you'd probably be more inclined to drop those instead. But on 4, a Rabbit isn't a bad option either. Here we get a disconnect, and then we have to reconnect here. That was a little weird. Regardless though, the opponent draws 2 off of the Flavorsham, banishing that ice block. So the opponent on 6 ink, it looks like, has 2 left to work with. And this Flavorsham can be a little bit of a problem, but this is why I talk about the Amethyst package being a little bit more resilient. And yes, other aggro decks that play Amethyst would have access to this as well. But just being able to, mim Fox out an exerted character is very beneficial. Now, of course, this Hiram will potentially quest and draw another 2. The opponent is already on 6 ink, which means they're 1 away from Be Prepared, 2 away from the Sisu 8-drop, and with the Fishbone Quill, they could drop the 8-drop Sisu next turn if they really wanted to. So me being aware of the Be Prepared / 8-drop Sisu, I think I opt to play a little bit more casually, a little bit more safely, and I play an Ursula Deceiver to check for the Be Prepared, but no, they do have the 8-drop Sisu though, a Maui and a Grammatala, so they did have the Maui, so playing around that with the Chernobog followers was likely correct, and then the Ursula check here, just allows us to make sure that we're not going to get Be Prepared next turn. But honestly, you'd rather get Be Prepared than Sisu wiped, right? Like I mentioned before, because at this point, there's not much I can do with limited cards in hand to claw my way back if I do get board wiped multiple times. It's not even a saving grace. Like the opponent inking twice, once with Fishbone and once for turn, doesn't even slow them down that much because they have the Hiram ability in order to draw 2. So they had 3 in hand last turn. They drew for 4. They inked something, so they're down to 3. Then they quest with Hiram. Now they're on 5 in hand. They play the Sisu. They're on 4 in hand. They're going to ink Grammatala for turn, which means now they're on 2 in hand. Popsicle replaces itself, so they still got 2 in hand. And now I have to deal with this Hiram and this Sisu, and my game plan to take out the Hiram, which was, throw Rabbit into it, Fox back Rabbit, take out the Hiram, that's a total of 6 damage into the Hiram, now becomes a non-reality, and the opponent getting this board wipe off, I don't want to say ends the game necessarily, but it does put me in a very difficult position. So we're going to pay 3 and drop, don't tell me it's going to be a Diablo, because that really doesn't do anything here. We know the opponent had a Maui and they inked the Grammatala. They might have fishboned their Maui from before. So I think, whatever, I got like multiple turn 3 interactions here. I do drop the Diablo, which again, like I mentioned, is, the 1 drop is a proxy for my 3 drops because I didn't double sleeve this deck. So I didn't want to put the Diablos into this Emerald Amethyst deck non-double sleeved. And I pay 1 for a Pegasus as well. So you can see my hand is a little lackluster as follow-up to that Sisu. And there wasn't much I can do, right? I didn't really overextend into the Sisu. Like, I just had that Flynn Rider on board since like turn 2. I would continue to quest with it. I dropped the rabbit on turn 3, and at least the rabbit was sticky, right? So when it left field, it did at least draw me a card. But now the opponent has the advantageous board state, the bigger characters on board, and they're going to just be able to continue to develop those threats. What's kind of funny here is they just have another Sisu just by chance, so I lose my Diablo and my Pegasus, and that just hurts me a lot. That basically cleared the game up for them. There's no way I'm coming back from 2 Sisus. It's hard enough to come back from 1. It's still technically manageable. Very difficult though. So we play the Ursula Deceiver, and the opponent has a 1-jump, double Maui, and a Brawl. So yeah, they were holding on to those Mauis, knowing that it's a good way to slow me down. The Madame Medusa as well as follow through, because everything in this deck does get hit by Madame Medusa. So while this deck is supposed to have a good matchup into control, you can see where it could struggle quite a bit. Like I mentioned earlier, the Queen's Castle doesn't really provide too much value here, considering the opponent has 11 strength on board that they can run into anything. So playing the Queen's Castle will just deny the inevitable. They end up top decking the 3rd Sisu, and at this point it's basically game over. They go to, I think, 12 there. Yeah, so despite having no items for Hiram, I draw and I just scoop it up because, what did I scoop? I should be. Yeah, I think they're picking up their cards, right? No? Okay, I'm going to try to play something out here, but I'll probably just wait to see my draw and then scoop. Yeah, okay. Not that I was going to draw anything anyways, but at this point in the game, like, there's nothing you can do. If the opponent sees multiple Sisus, it's really hard to come back from. Honestly, after the 2nd Sisu, the game was over. After the 1st one, it's like really devastating, but the 3rd one is just insult to injury. However, in game 2, we are going to be on the play, and this is where this deck is strong, and you want to aggressively mulligan for a Cursed Merfolk. It's definitely your best opener, particularly in these matchups, because the opponent basically will have no answer until like turn 3, right? So it guarantees you basically 4 lore. There's literally no answer, I don't think, right? Like, they have to shotgun brawl it, which is a bad play anyways. So when you drop this Cursed Merfolk, it can be extremely strong. So on turn 2, I'm going to aim to snipe the 1-jump, and that's exactly what we see the opponent have there, as well as double Popsicle, Brawl, Madame Medusa, Tamatoa. So a decent opening hand. They got the items if they end up getting the Hiram, and they have the Brawl to slow down a big threat of mine. But the Cursed Merfolk is just, gonna put in the work here basically. When you watched the Chicago DLC, the Disney Lorcana Challenge, the 2nd place player, when they played, I think in the finals, they got 1 match against Emerald Steel, which is normally a traditionally bad matchup, where they were able to win on the play because they just aggressively got out a couple of Cursed Merfolks, and it was just, by the time the opponent can let the Storm Rage on it and stuff, it's just a little too slow. So here you can see on turn 3, we're able to drop the Diablo. The opponent on turn 3 opts not to brawl, thinking that, this board state is kind of just bait. They're going to opt to continue to ramp, knowing that going for that Sisu is likely going to be their out. So, we're not on discard, so their hand is pretty safe. They still have 4 cards in hand. I don't even remember what the Ursula revealed, but they're on 4 ink, so they've clawed back tempo to a certain degree, but at the cost of card advantage without having that Hiram to replace it, right? But if they play Hiram in this situation, it's just going to slow them down. Yes, the card draw is nice, but it's not what they need right now. We're already on 9. We're going to go ahead and play Snake to bounce back the Ursula Deceiver to potentially snipes like a How Far I'll Go or a Be Prepared out of the opponent's hand, and then just drop another 1-drop Cursed Merfolk. So the opponent draws for turn, we draw off of the Diablo here, and now we're just in a really advantageous board state, because on 4 ink, even if the opponent double inks and goes to 6 and drops the Medusa, it's like, you out the Diablo, then I just quest for 5 next turn, go to 14, right? You out a Cursed Merfolk, I still have the Diablo. So it's like they can't really win. Yeah, they do end up inking the Brawl, knowing that the body is better, and then Medusing, opting to take out the Diablo. So, they have to deal with these Cursed Merfolks as well, and with only 2 cards in hand, challenging into them isn't really a great option unless they can dump their hand first. but ideally they want to 8-drop Sisu. So if they have the 8-drop Sisu, they're going to have to double ink and then drop it next turn, right? So we're going to go ahead and Ursula Deceiver to take a look at what they got. They do indeed have the Be Prepared and another Medusa there. So we come in super clutch in getting that bounce with the Ursula and then replaying it on the turn that they're going to be able to be prepared here. We're going to go ahead and ink Friends because we don't need card draw right now. We're threatening game next turn. The Medusa coming down won't do enough, but they can Medusa one, let's say Merfolk, and then challenge into the Snake for 3 damage with their Medusa already on board. They do indeed drop the Medusa, and yeah, I just assume that they were going to take out one of the Merfolk because I think it's game otherwise, more or less. But yeah, they do indeed opt to take out exactly what I said, a Merfolk with the Madame Medusa, and then why did I... Oh, they're going to ink. Oh, I think I told them to take out... I think we had some discussion, and I was like, you probably want to take out the Merfolk, so just ink your final card if you're not going to play it, and then just take out the Merfolk. And I think they were like, yeah, that's probably the play, because the Maleficent Dragon they top deck isn't playable anyways, and it won't be playable for a number of turns, so there's no point in trying to keep that in your hand. So yeah, on 4 ink, we don't even need to go beyond that. I play a 3-drop Diablo. Again, the 1-drop is just a proxy for the 3-drop. So I pull the 3-drop out of my Emerald Steel deck because that is double sleeved and I don't want to non-double sleeve my Diablos. I quest for 2, go to 16, knowing full well that these will get wiped out with the Medusa. With the double Medusas on board, challenging into the Snake and the Ursula Deceiver. They top deck a Grammatala, which is decent, but again, only on a couple of ink. It's not going to do enough for them. They're going to end up taking the Develop Your Brain off of that Gramma and then playing Develop Your Brain for 1, leaving them with 1 ink left. They take 1 card to hand there, even though I think it was off camera. I did confirm that they did. Yeah, so there it is in their hand there. With only 1 ink though, there's not much that they can play out. And I have 3 cards left in hand here, so they're going to do indeed double challenge and pass turn. So they're still on 0 lore. I'm on 16. This Diablo will put me to 17, and I think I do have a goat and a fox in hand, so it's really just a matter of time before I win the game now. And yeah, you can see on 4, okay, I drop Rabbit, which is interesting. Drawing a card. I mean, yeah, they're in top deck mode, so I guess I'm not too scared because they can't challenge this Diablo. They have to top deck their way out of it. Well, I mean, well, to be fair, they did Grammatala and Develop Your Brain, so they could be sitting on, like a, I don't know, like they can't Sisu yet, I don't think, right? Okay, so they draw, they Fishbone. Oh, they can Sisu. So maybe this is why I played Rabbit instead, because I don't want to lose my goat necessarily, and at least I draw off the Rabbit, and I think I drew off the Diablo like I was supposed to. I didn't catch it though. But maybe I thought that, yeah, it was better to play Rabbit in this scenario so I could preserve the goat. So let's see, what do we do here? We're going to pay 2 for a Cursed Merfolk, okay. And then 1 for a Pegasus, and then we have 2 left. Okay, no, we're going to ink the Tinkerbell, so we have 3 ink now, and pay 3 for another 3-drop Diablo. Did I not have the goat cycle? I thought I did. I know, I'm pretty sure I do. I'm just opting not to play it in case the opponent top decks like removal for it, I guess. But now I'm putting them on. You have to answer, multiple characters now. So they have to pay 4 for this Hiram, draw cards. They don't have enough ink to follow up with anything. And yes, they have a big board state that they can now potentially run away with the game with. But with us being at 17, doing what aggro is supposed to do, getting a lot of that early lore in, we're able to kind of just run away with the game. So this matchup, when they don't see a lot of the high-end removal and get to the high-end removal fast enough, and even if they do, like they run out of cards pretty quickly if they don't see Hiram quick enough too, like it's hard for them to prioritize. Do I play Hiram? Do I play the removal? How much do I slow you down? And it's just sometimes a little too difficult for them to do everything, and that's where this deck can really excel into those control matchups here. So this, this deck, you're going to see us, yeah, so we're going to quest for 2 and then play goat for game. And as we wrap up here, I will say, like, this deck is good if you are in like a control heavy meta, like if you have a lot of Ruby Amethyst players, a lot of Sapphire Steel, Sapphire Ruby, like you see here in your meta. You should be able to do well because Ruby Amethyst doesn't play the 8-drop Sisu. They do play Be Prepared, but you can definitely, that matchup is traditionally good. You can definitely outrace them and win the game. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. If you made it this far, thank you again for watching. Make sure you drop a like if you did enjoy it. Quantum is out.